Capcom have once again dropped a massive information drop for Resident Evil 9, which is leaving a lot of content creators scratching our heads. What is up, everybody? Andy here from Biohazard Declassified, and let's talk about Leon S. Kennedy not being in Resident Evil 9.
Biohazard.
So Capcom had a huge event, the Capcom Spotlight. They were talking all things upcoming Capcom games. Monster Hunter was there, Pragmata was there, and of course, Resident Evil 9 Requiem. And in a seemingly throwaway comment by the director, Koshi Nakanishi, Leon is not the protagonist of Resident Evil 9. It was so, left field. It just completely came out of nowhere. There was no build up to this, whatever. They were just talking about Grace Ashcroft, who is the new protagonist, which we're really excited to find more about. And they did divulge a little bit more into her character, how she's a bit timid, etc. Introverted, I think was the word they used. And again, I appreciate English is not the director's mother tongue. As we know, Resident Evil is a Japanese IP, but yeah, this completely come out of left field. As you can see, I've summarized it here. They just come out and said, we always thought about making Leon the protagonist, but he's actually quite a bad match for horror. So they've said that they haven't said he's not going to be in Resident Evil 9. They just said he's not going to be the protagonist for Resident Evil 9, and that he's a bad match for horror. Now, this has absolutely sent shockwaves through the content creation and obviously all of the hype surrounding Resident Evil 9 Requiem. A lot of people, as you know, insiders, Dust Column, etc., all across the board saying it's going to be Grace, it's going to be Leon S. Kennedy, and that's the way they're going with the story. So it's very odd that they choose to specifically mention Leon. I mean, if he's not going to be in it, why mention him at all? It just seems very oddly specific. It's the equivalent of me saying Ark Thompson is not going to be in Resident Evil 9. It's like they just didn't need to say anything, which makes me think, is this all a ruse like they had for the Summer Game Fest Jeff show, where it was at the end of the show, and it's a big ruse. We thought they was going to get RE9 information. They said they're going to have it shortly, and then it ended up like bookending the show, and it was absolutely spectacular. I think we may be on the case. I just can't... on that sort of line, I just cannot see Capcom going back to Raccoon City and not having at least one iconic character tied to it. And I think Leon, I appreciate Chris, Barry, Jill, they may have all of their own motivations for going back to Raccoon City, but I just think Leon makes sense. I'm not going to divulge too much of why I think he's in there and what his story's going to be, because I really want to cover it in an upcoming video, but I think Leon, out of everybody, makes the most sense. So what they could be saying here is he's not the main protagonist. Maybe he is going to be a character you play as during RE9, but certainly not a main character. They want that story to focus around Grace. And again, I do think it's strange that they just pull it out of their arse and just say, oh yeah, Leon's not going to be in the game. Okay. Why didn't they say Chris isn't going to be in the game, or Barry's not going to be in the game? Why specifically Leon? I just think it's extremely interesting to bring it up. And to be fair, I do agree with the rationale. I've had conversations with various content creators and in the comments section here, and as you can see, I did actually say personally I think it's a ruse and it's going to be in it. I do think he's partially right, and I'm going to come on to that now, that Leon represents action rather than horror. We are always going to have this problem, gang. We are always going to have a problem with telling brand new, compelling stories. Obviously, we can tell any story we want, but it's going to be hard to tell a compelling story with these aged characters. And I think that's why Death Island, to me, really struggled as a story, because all of these characters have already been through such substantial changes. Rebecca is no longer that damsel in distress that she was in RE1. Leon is no longer that naive police officer that he was in Resident Evil 2. And Chris is no longer the naive rifleman, ex-Air Force veteran in Resident Evil 1 that really trusted his boss and everything like that. He was his boss's best hand, or what, however Wesker worded it. These characters have already been through these substantial changes. I think it's extremely difficult to tell a compelling story, and especially because Leon, his last outing, not canonically, but in terms of release date, was Resident Evil 4 Remake. that was a very heavily action horror game, and I think they're trying to tell this RE7 type story where it's very, very horror focused, and I just don't think Leon works in that capacity. Now, that's not to say he's not going to be in it at all, and obviously they are going back to Raccoon City, and I will make this clear. I strongly advise Capcom to not go back to Raccoon City and not include an iconic character, and certainly something substantial with that iconic character, which of course I'll talk about in a future video. But guys, I really want to know your thoughts on this. This was absolutely huge news. It took us all for a shock when we was streaming it over at the Residents of Evil, and it just sent such a huge shock waves. What do you think? Do you think this is a ruse? Do you think they're just being honest and saying, set your expectations, Leon's not going to be in the game? Or do you think this is them kind of trying to pull the wool over our eyes with the intention we're going to get this big, huge surprise, like when we saw Big Boss in Metal Gear Solid 4, you know? Let me know your thoughts, guys. As always, thank you so much for tuning into this. If you enjoy my content, please consider dropping us a follow, like, wherever you watch my content, and we will see you fine folk in the next video. You take it easy.